Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wish you a good afternoon. I'm very pleased to see that some people remained here. Of course, towards the end of this trade fair on a Friday evening, fewer people are left, but it's still nice to be able to welcome so many of you. It is a very interesting subject today. Everyone is talking about apps, but there are also other channels that can be used for the purpose of marketing, and this is what we would like to shed a light on. I've got very interesting panelists here on stage. I was not allowed to choose them myself, but still I think they are exactly the right ones. Fátima Blanco Villaverde sitting to my left. She's the director of the tourism office in Andalucia, of the Junta in Andalucia. Professor Dr. Freyer is the chair of tourism economics and management at the Technical University Dresden. Then Manuel Molina, managing director of the TSS, one of the biggest travel agency corporations in Germany. And to the far right, we've got Markus Schreyer, the regional director of sales for Eastern Central Europe at the Starwood Hotels and Resorts. They've got their headquarters in Vienna. Welcome. Let us start with a short presentation of Mr. Molina's, and afterwards we will enter into a discussion. And if any one of you feels like asking a question during our discussion, whenever you feel like it, please just raise your hand and use one of the microphones. You can always ask us, because we try to make this as interactive as possible. But now, first of all, let's listen to Mr. Molina's presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just get started. First of all, I would also like to welcome you. Thank you very much for being here. In 1993, we founded a traditional cooperation system for travel agencies. 15 travel agents came together some 20 years ago who wanted to further their approach in purchase, and then, of course, life changed over the last 20 years. The traditional way of doing business back then was that the customer used to come to the travel agency, and then they did the sorting according to destination, country, what kind of tour operators they wanted to use. But as you have already heard today, you get different channels via which trips and travels are being offered, and everyone can nowadays produce offers, travel offers, because there are no concessions necessary or specific qualifications. So we have to be closer to our customers, and that is how we started our multi-channel strategy between 1995 and 2000. It's one of the first organizations, by the way. You can see the traditional way of doing business back in the past. Destinations, hoteliers, and service providers through the tour operator who had either a direct distribution approach, or back then we had some 97% of the overall turnover was generated through travel agencies. But life is changing, as I said. With our multi-channel strategy, we followed a path of reorientation. Now today we've got 7 companies and 100 staff in order to be able to really fully use the scope of different distribution channels. But the objective is to be close to the customer as the travel agency. Whether you use call centers, online distribution channels, or specific productions in order to give a special push to brands, you have to use these different approaches. And at the CeBIT, the computer trade fair in Hanover, we saw how technologically demanding all of this is. But what is very important for us as operators is that the emotion is being conveyed, because all of the technologies that we are using still need to have enough room for emotionality, because this is the USP of travel agencies, you know, to feel this kind of emotion and to also feel safe and secure. At the same time, we have to use a modern approach, and of course can use a multitude of different channels in order to convey the idea of emotions, in order to really make our marketing efforts worthwhile. And this is what it's all about. We've got, I think, something like 5,000 different options in order to offer destinations, hotels, and service providers via the travel agencies. But the customer needs to have the feeling like they did their booking online or call centers. And our objective is to really get people's travel agencies into their living rooms. You know, we want them to, you know, actually get access to the travel agencies in their living rooms, and the travel agencies will use this channel to present destinations and the different hotels. And the question is how the destinations can actually participate in this kind of development. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Molina. Unfortunately, with the charts, it always takes a lot longer, but to understand everything. But I think we'll come back to that later. I would first of all like to ask Ms. Blanco. For years, you have cooperated with TSS. Why are you doing that? And what was the benefit for a destination like Andalucia? Well, we've been cooperating for 7 years now, more or less. I think it was 7 years when we first met, and the tourism authorities in Andalucia, that was founded some 20 years ago. And in the beginning, we, of course, only used the traditional marketing channels. We were only present at trade fairs, for example, and nothing much more. Perhaps we had a little advertising activity on the different national levels, but then step by step we started cooperating with tour operators, and through these cooperations, some 7 years ago, we got to know Mr. Molina, and he told us a little bit about the fact that in Germany, not only the tour operators exist as a possible channel of distribution, but that it would also be very, very important to actually work with the brokering agencies, which in this case are the travel agencies, and that they play an important role in Germany. And that's when we started to conclude cooperation contracts and used different methods, or started using different methods, like the ones that Mr. Molina just mentioned in his presentation. Of course, for us, it made a major difference because you know, at once we had so many different opportunities for our marketing. But what kind of new opportunities arose concretely, or what has changed over the course of the years? Well, in the beginning, we, of course, always cooperated with the large tour operators and got their advice. But through TSS, the opportunity presented itself to use the intranet of TSS in order to contact a large number of travel agencies, and we even organized our own events. And with the help of Mr. Molina, we then were able to reach out to the travel agencies that we wanted to invite to our events. As, for example, when TSS organized evening events for their travel agencies, we also had the opportunity to be there, to be present, and to actually present our destination directly to the travel agents or their representatives, something that we couldn't do before that. Mr. Molina, is that only these kinds of evening events? But this wouldn't be a multi-channel approach. No, you, of course, transport the destination globally into all the different networks. So we can use, of course, the intranet, and first of all, we inform the travel agencies, 1,200 in Europe approximately. They need to know what's going on, and then you use the online portal channels, the online call systems. Today, you can also use apps as a different channel, and you can do it virtually on the internet. So what we're doing is we're trying to actually carry the travel agencies and the destinations that they represent through all of these channels to the customers. And the objective is to actually be part of a family, you know. And via you access this family through your smartphone or through your television or internet, you should enable people to actually get in touch with your travel agencies. And those evening events that we had were rather active events. It was very, very interesting, of course, because it is a face-to-face event, you know, speaking of technology all the time. But we are, you know, part of a human-based industry, which means that you have to organize these kinds of events, sometimes special interest events, you know, or around special subjects, Spanish evening with the tapas and local cuisine, for example. All of these are just factors that help to shore up the effort. Mr. Freyer, you've been pursuing this subject for quite a while. Do you really think that it really boils down to the jamón and the human perspective? Is it really that important, or is it just one factor among so many other different opportunities that may be even more efficient? Well, no, just as you said, there are many different approaches. We've got a multitude of channels, but in many of these channels, it of course depends on the relationships between human beings. And so in scientific literature, we use a more modern kind of term, the contact path policies, as we call them, contacts between persons and between institutions and how these came about. And in the past, in the traditional textbooks, people just ask the question of what a distribution is and how you get the product from A to B. This would be a way of thinking in, the system of pipelines, transporting things in one direction. But of course, we do not have this in tourism. You can't really transport the destination to the customer to Germany, under the theater cannot be brought to the German customer. No, it's the customer who has to go to the travel agencies or log on to an online portal. And so we've got a shift of paradigms, from a one-way to at least a two-way kind of dialogue-based communication in marketing. And this, I think, is the central point. And in between, we've got the people who actually start talking to each other in order to really use these pathways. But if I'm, really savvy about how to place my product, the destination, if I've got a huge marketing budget, for example, and use the information channels alone, then I don't need this kind of other approach. No, you could still pursue a one-way strategy, couldn't you? Yes, well, as I try to point out, there are different areas, but apart from this kind of one-way approach, especially in the field of modern developments, you can also pay attention to other aspects, so that we ended up with this multitude of channels. And you just mentioned the contact pathway policies. Unfortunately, you will have to explain that to someone from the tourism industry. Well, I tried to point that out, that it's about the doing things together. It's not about one party decreeing to the other what kind of path to pursue. It's not the destination saying, okay, just book our destination or find something else. No, it's those who have the offer to sell, the destinations, the hoteliers, they have to make an effort in order to get in contact with the distribution pathways. And this, I think, is also where an institution like the TSS comes into play, that also brokers then the contact to the final customers, to the end customers, which the travel agencies used to do in the past themselves. So you've got all the participants entering into a kind of a multifaceted dialogue, and this is a modern kind of quality to this dialogue that is being created. Mr. Freyer. Oh, Mr. Schreyer, I'm sorry. I just mixed up your names. Mr. Schreyer, you also represent this kind of multi-channel approach. Talking to hotel operators, I get the impression that you do not really get that many people who are convinced of this multi-channel approach, that they try to focus on online alone. Well, I think that is a mistake, that you've been talking about multi-channel approaches, that you speak exclusively about online. I think it became clear in the slides too. Multi-channel approaches mean that you actually have to deliver your offer to the customer wherever they're looking for you. And that is, in the ideal combination, a combination of, stationary distribution, or rather a physical distribution, and online. You should not make the mistake of just thinking of online distribution channels. Now, on the contrary, I'm personally convinced, and I can see this in our everyday work, that the personal dimension to customer retention is very important and will become more important, especially in the field of, the luxury segment, the high-value products, which we all want to sell, of course. And, it's the products that are not being sold because of the prices alone. This is where customer retention and personal contact will become increasingly important in the future. Now, in our preparatory talks, you said that B2B and B2C can no longer be that clearly differentiated. Why not? Well, because it became apparent that there is no longer the one traditional distribution channel. The customer wants to get their information through different channels. They want to communicate using different channels and, also do their booking with the help of the different channels. And as was already pointed out, we should not imagine that we could any longer tell the customer how to do their booking. We have to really try and be present in all the different opportunities and possibilities. And we have to be as personal as we can in terms of the dovetailing of our products, and we will only be able to do that by offering a broad spectrum of different products in a multitude of channels. And especially in the new markets, for example, when talking about the BRIC states, for example, that of course a very important subject for all of us, that the multi-channel management is so much bigger, you know, because traditional distribution may play an important role, but the new and innovative distribution channels are even more important, you know, or the Generation Y as a subject. I think you really have to have a target, a very specifically targeted approach here for the different target groups. But what about the cooperation with the traditional distribution? Well, the salesperson today, the sales rep today has a very important role to play, and he's got to be more of an entrepreneur. And you can see that in travel agencies. I think those who actually work in a travel agency are much more responsible than they used to be in the past. You know, they do not only have to be knowledgeable about distribution, but also social media and so on and so forth in order to capture the full potential of the customer relationship. So personal contact, the emotional aspect of your product is very important, and everything in the upscale segment is very important. You know, one night in one hotel, I think these things will be done online only in the future times, just as, you know, a short trip with a single ticket for a flight, for example. But with a view to the high-end range of products here, there are real opportunities for the presentation of your product. Mr. Molina, you just said that the objective is to get the traditional travel agency into the living rooms. Isn't this, you know, just, you know, a hailing of online? No, online is just a channel that we are using. You know, the online world is, you know, something like an expanded kind of instrument that was not around 15 years ago. Back then we had you know, snail mail ads that were thrown into the letterboxes, and today you can tell your customers online that you've got a modern travel agency and that people can come and visit you, but that they can also find you online, or that you have a call center, you know. But I think, you know, as the source market of Germany is very important, and, you know, people, especially when spending a certain amount of money, wants to be perceived as, the customers want to be perceived as a human being, you know. And if you've got a hotel rate, for example, of 40 euros, then you just pay those 40 euros and hope for a room. Or if you've got a trip, for example, for 99 euros, then people don't really think about it twice. But if you do a trip with your family and your, I don't know, your in-laws, so if you spend thousands of euros, then you can do this, of course, online, also with the help of our systems. But it's very good feeling to go and visit a travel agent and to talk about booking this trip, you know. And we represent this kind of bridge here, and I think this is what the physical travel offices and travel agencies are there for. And we try to build a bridge between the modern approaches and still making the old traditional ways available, and to also help shore them up, you know. Travel agencies become more modern, are more savvy about many things, and they are no longer, you know, just bound to their physical location. They can even accompany their customers on their trips, if you will. But one of the arguments for the traditional distribution of travels was, you know, counseling, trust. But now we've had this boom of social media channels, Mr. Freyer, that only years ago no one would have expected. No one knows where the whole thing will end up. What we hear more and more frequently, that customers rather like to be or rather like to get their advice from other travelers and no longer from the experts. Well, it's just as you formulated it, you know. It's a question of trust and confidence, and some people rather trust their friends or their family, but others perhaps have more trust in the competencies of your expert in the travel agency, you know. They have the better skills in order to offer you an optimal package than your friends. Well, they may have an opinion, they may tell you something about hotels or locations or boutiques that are very much en vogue or high quality, and you may listen to them. But, you know, especially when it comes to trips and traveling, you need to be able to trust in the booking operations. You need to be able to trust the destination, the recommendations, and the hotels. And this is what the experts are there for. And that's why they are so important. You know, we are all experts here at the ITB, and we all try to actually convey this kind of trust and confidence to our customers. Ms. Blanco, have you had the opportunity to gather some experiences with social media as the authority for tourism in Andalucia? Well, we rather recently started our initiative, especially in Germany. In Spain, we are much more advanced, using Facebook and Twitter and other internet sites and channels. We started in Germany last November with a Facebook page in German. Until now, we've got something like 150 followers only, which is not that many. But in November, as I said, we made the first step. But I am really convinced that it is very important to use the opportunities of viral marketing. It can really help the individual destinations. It could also turn out to be a disadvantage, but a destination can also reap a benefit, if there are positive reports on social networks about certain destinations. And I think that there are people out there who actually listen to the opinion of others and follow their recommendations. And that's why you really have to be very careful and very alert and have a good marketing strategy on the internet as tour operators, as travel agencies, because it's so important what people talk about online about us. Well, and in the long run, this cooperation with the TSS, will it be pushed aside by these channels, or is it just something on top of that? No, it's just added on. We're present in Germany anyway. And the more channels we use in order to do our marketing, the better. The more opportunities will we have to actually convince travelers of our destination. And, this is just an additional channel in order to sell our destination. This is what we're doing.
Irgendwann ein weiterer
Mr. Schreyer, will social media at some time be part of a multi-channel approach? Well, yes, you have the customer feedback that, in our case, came up 2 years ago. We were all slightly worried, and we found out that travelers today, and that's funny enough, has confidence in people who he doesn't even know, as long as they, post comments on an international website. But we found out, and that's an opportunity for us, that this can very well be integrated as an additional strategy on our websites. We have an official, unmoderated, uncontrolled comment site. You shouldn't be afraid of bad comment. I mean, the question always is, what's bad press? Bad press is always better than no press. You just need to, react accordingly. And when there is a bad comment, you need to react to it. But when you see that we have growth and development, positive development, even though there were some comments that weren't 100% positive, then this is quite interesting to see. And this is a good opportunity for all travel partners, also travel agencies, to integrate that. And advice and consulting is something that is still done face-to-face, but I think that this is really one additional possibility. You also have the Starwood principle of the right distribution channel or the right content for the right distribution channel. Yes, we like to say that on an internet site you present a lot of content that might not be relevant for the specific target group. It's not the quantity. You have to work with a great focus on the respective target group. You have to position yourself. That applies to hotels, to destinations, to travel agencies. You cannot say we're the nicest hotel on the beach. That's not sufficient anymore. You have to really work according to the target group that you want to attract. And then it is important to, introduce the right content on the right channel. Mobile is something that we didn't talk about 2 years ago, and today 25% of all topics that are searched on the website are generated via the mobile device, and it's a different need. How does this content differentiate from the PC content, the website content? Well, you shouldn't only satisfy the customers nowadays, you have to thrill them. You have to look at what their real needs are, and the needs depend on the different distribution channel. Baby boomers are 41% of our trips. They use other booking channels than the new generation. And not the wrong ones, but the different ones, and you need to adjust that. You need to adapt it. You need to look at what the experience is that the customers are looking for, and you cannot say we take everything we're offering and put that on all booking channels. That would be too puzzling and not a really customer-focused offer. Other questions from the audience? possible comments, statements on the topic? If I can see anybody. So, Mr. Freyer, how do you think the behavior of the consumers will change? Who will be the dominant side in the multi-channel strategy? Well, in consumer research and traveler behavior research, we talk about the split consumer. Everything will develop in parallel and synchronous. A lot of things will be booked quickly, online, one overnight stay, one trip. The faster things, the easier things, but the so-called classic distribution channels, travel agencies, stationary travel agencies, will be responsible for the more complicated, high-quality products where different elements are combined. So for these things, you need other distribution channels. And in future, we will be seeing more and more multi-channel approaches depending on the different target group. And a lot of them, have their right to exist. There will not be the black and white approach. You're either online or stationary. There will be both possibilities enhancing one another, but different strategies for different products, whether it's an easy, simple product or a more complex product. That is something that in the future will be available in a multifunctional way. And will this continue to be the case even though the mobile internet is developing at such a fast pace, or is this, looking like into a figure-8 ball? But if you look at how tremendous the changes were in the past 1, 2, or 4 years, it's probably unwise to say nothing will change in the next few years. A lot of things will change. And particularly the mobile device is something that is permanently with the people, and on trips it will play an increasingly important role, but we'll have to learn how to deal with it, and it's going to become self-evident. It's going to be a new thing that's going to be introduced, and we'll adapt to that. That's the interesting thing about traveling. In the past, people like to always be alone and in isolation. Today, a lot of people cannot be without their cell phone, and they like to, sleep with it under their blanket and like to be connected to what's happening at home. That might have a certain quality to it, but at some point, people might want to again go on vacation and switch everything off. Mr. Molina, we heard that TSS started very early on with multi-channel, and you spoke about the different channels that you have. What's the current innovation? Well, we had the idea that the customers access the internet. That was in 1999, 2000, when the first internet portals came up and fast products were offered, and we decided that we wanted to position ourselves with more than one channel, and we had an internet site per travel agency. That was multi-channel 10 years ago, but that was a real revolution, a real innovation, and the objective now is to have a travel agency app. You just click on it, you find it reflected on your TV screen, and you have it with you the entire time on your mobile device. So we do not only have to reach out to the customer, we have to be a permanent fixture in their lives. That's the vision that we have when at the click of a button, the tour operators, the travel agents open up before their eyes and you can exchange information with them. They accompany you throughout the entire trip. You don't have to go to the physical travel agency, but you have a contact channel to the person that you're familiar with. Yes, the travel agency always has to be the center of that communication. People can always still go to the physical travel agency. The travel agency will continue to exist, but it's going to become more modern. And as travel agencies, we want to accompany our customers on their trips. That's the vision that we have. We go with them, whether it's a business trip or leisure trip, because on the way, a lot of influence is communicated to us via smartphone, internet, and so on. And if they have additional questions, we can, book additional things. We can do things in the destination. If they arrive in Malaga and then they want to have a good piece of bacon, and then they look at their app, where can I go and have dinner? And we want to accompany them. That is our vision. There was a question over there in the second row.
A guest, do you believe that parity rate should be for all the channels of distribution? What is your opinion on parity rate, having all these different ways of selling the rooms?
The question was to Mr. Schreyer, or?
More rooms for, yeah.
Yeah. English or German?
Sie können Deutsch sprechen, weil sie ja die Kopfhörer hat und simultan übersetzt wird.
Ist eine sehr, sehr gute Frage.
That's a very, very good question. Rate parity, that's something that we are all interested in. I think a fast answer would be one night at one hotel is something that requires rate parities. Why should one night at one hotel have different prices and different channels if it's the same category? But this is a topic, and that has been reconfirmed by the discussions of the past years. This is something that we don't want to focus that much on the rate or on the price. We want to focus more on which channel, which partner provides me with a personalized offer and the additional value added. You can create customer loyalty through added values. It can be the quality of service or service components that are provided. So the topic of rate is one that in the years to come will be pushed more into the background. Apart from that, yes, for the classic simple trips, I think there will be an increasing level of rate parity, but I'm quite confident that in the years to come we will be talking about high quality trips and will make our profit through added value and added services. Are there other questions? The microphone is coming. Please wait. You have mentioned social media and the stationary travel agency, the physical travel agency. Young people tend to book more via the internet. They don't tend to go to travel agencies. How do you want to ensure in the future that travel agencies will be able to reach out to us so that we make use of that distribution channel instead of only the internet? Because the current generation should also have a multi-channel strategy. I think the baby boomers still use the travel agency, but what about the young generation? If I understand you correctly, we know that social media are developing and advancing. That's an interesting question, Mr. Molina. How can a travel agency win over young customers? Maybe she has been booking with the travel agency for quite some time but isn't aware of it, because sometimes there are hidden channels. The internet is only a way to book something. In the past, you wrote letters, and the letter was the means to achieve something. So the internet is a means to achieve something. There are a lot of travel agencies that are embedded on the internet. You only perceive it as an online portal, and if we achieve that, we did a good job, because it means we have positioned the travel agency on the internet in a very modern way and have reached out to the younger generation. And maybe you will continue to be an internet booker for the rest of your life, but there's also the possibility of going to travel agencies. There are numerous portals in Germany, reisen.de, reisen.com, and so on, that already are travel agencies but are not perceived as travel agencies. So we talk about the internet, we talk about smartphones, and through these channels we reach out to young people, and we will accompany them through their process of growing up and becoming more mature. It's always a gradual approach. But targeted outreach is difficult, right? You have to, get them from the internet. Let's say a website XYZ already belongs to a travel agency or not, but that's market economy. That's the way it is. But you have to find that out yourself. When we talk about the differences between the younger and the older generation, it's also a matter of time. As a young person, you sometimes have a lot of time, and you can put together your own trip. All it costs you is some time, and when you don't yet have a high income, 1 hour or 2 hours doesn't make a difference. But when you're older and you're advancing in your career, doing some research for an hour is something that costs you time. So you'd rather like to go to a travel agency and they give you competent advice and you tend to pay a little bit more, but that burden has been taken off your shoulders. And that's another aspect that needs to be taken into consideration. Otherwise, every person has to be the travel agency. They have to acquire these competences, which is fun for a while, but at some point you just don't have the time. You don't want to do it anymore after it didn't work out too perfectly the first or second time. You only notice that when you're traveling, when you find out that you pay 10-20% less, but you're not satisfied. And then next time you want to avoid that experience, so you're spending more time. And the other option would be to go to a skilled travel agent who can give you a tailor-made product. But maybe I don't have the time to go to the travel agency because I also have a job. And travel agencies have opening hours. Well, yes, that's why it's multi-channel. You can enter everything you want online, send it to the travel agency, and they send you an offer back. You don't have to go there physically anymore. So it's an online booking process, but it is directed at a travel agency. But then I have to find the travel agency on the internet. I need to know the web address of every local travel agency, but you're a young person. Use the social media. Go and access Facebook, ask your friends what is the portal that you booked your last trip on, and then the question is answered. Assuming that your friends are competent enough to say we already found the best travel agency, or we argue in a more classic way and say send a booking request to the travel agency of your confidence and they will send you an offer. At least we all assume that we have a travel agent who knows what he or she is talking about. Everybody, I mean, these people, they learned their job. So we have a physical travel agency, and as long as you have the feeling that you can do it better than a travel agency, do it yourself. I'd like to know which travel agencies you're talking about. Are you talking about chains or small, stationary, independent travel agency? I don't know how a small travel agency in a small town, which is really independent, how such a travel agency is supposed to put all of this into practice, social media and so on. Well, maybe, Mr. Molina, maybe you can say something about this. How are you doing this? How do you do that for 2,000 small, medium-sized travel agencies? 2,149 travel agencies in Germany. Sizes vary between small and very big, and there are organizations, and these organizations have umbrella brands, and there are online brands, and the travel agencies are organized under these umbrella brands. I'm not going to give you any names for antitrust reasons, but the small agencies are also represented there, and the more local you become, the end consumers are focused on the actual travel agency. So this, just Google some of the names, you will find them. It's an extremely complex system how end users can find the actual travel agency, but that's what we are there for. We want to, bring the customers closer to the travel agencies in a modern way. More than 80% of the overall profit or sales are generated through travel agencies. We're not talking about a market that doesn't exist. It's just about positioning ourselves in a more modern way and reaching out to young people. And when young people think, I booked myself via the internet and I have a great price, you would have gotten the same price in the travel agency as well, because the tour operators define the prices, and there are some products that might be a little bit cheaper online, but not with the same quality and security for the entire trip that the travel agency can provide. There's always been a divided market. In Germany, we always had 50% of the people who booked directly because they didn't want to go to a travel agency, and we will continue to have this 50-50 separation. So it's not the demand that everybody's doing the same thing. There's a great diversity, and if you look at the latest figures, the average German who books online spends 7.1 hours to do that. And this brings us to what Mr. Schreyer just said. As a young person, or when I like to surf online and I don't have anything else to do, then this is something that you like to do. But then there are a lot of people who say, I just spent 8 hours at the office. I don't want to sit around surfing the internet and spending my time on that. I let the professionals do it. And travel agencies today, a lot of friends of mine own travel agencies, and they're not the travel agencies of days gone by anymore. It's not the travel agency with the 2 counters, the 2 desks where you can only book between 9 and 6 p.m. Today, a travel agency, I mean, I've seen travel agencies that look like lounges, equipped like a lounge where you're really inspired to travel and where the salesperson comes home to you. A very good example. I mean, the banks nowadays also work via Skype and YouTube. You don't need to go to the actual office, and that's the way that travel agencies also have to develop. You will have a lot of social media and online channels that you make use of. I'd like to come back to another aspect because we slowly have to come to a close of our discussion. Mr. Schreyer, you said customer loyalty or customer relations have become more important than ever before. Is that an opportunity for the new media or for the travel agencies because they have been closer to the customers before? Everybody who defines a target group and provides personalized services to this target group has a great opportunity on the market. And there will always be a restructuring of the market. We've seen that with the travel agencies, they have changed, and other providers have changed as well. In the hotel sector, we very much focus, as I already said, on online and stationary distribution, which is earmarked toward, which is focused on the individual customers. And I know it sounds trite when you say, let's go and visit the customers because we have so many online distribution channels, but it continues to be a very important path to pursue, and particularly in the field of high quality or high price trips. And that's what we're doing. I mean, we have the salespeople, they can establish a relationship. It's not necessarily somebody who can do that who's at home in the online environment. That would not be a person who can excite a customer. That would not be somebody who you would want to have a beer with. And that's the salesperson, the sales rep, who is able to establish customer relationships and create customer loyalty, because that's what you create, loyalty, and at the same time, the customers get a good offer. Okay, Mr. Molina said emotions play a role. That's important. And the online channel just has a certain limitation in that respect. For us, it's very important to know about customer needs before the guests arrive, and that's, I think, the same for destinations. Customers who are online customers can be excited when they arrive physically by knowing what the customer needs are before the customers actually arrive. But this also implies that there are opportunities for people who are stationary sales reps. So customer satisfaction needs to be translated into customer excitation. And there will be good examples, and unfortunately there will also be not so good examples. Ms. Blanco, Villaverde, if we look back at the destinations, how does Andalucia market itself today? How do you use these different distribution channels? What do you attribute the most importance to? We always try to be omnipresent depending on the amount of money that we have available. When we talk about distribution channels, we want to be involved in the print media, we want to be present on the radio, and we want to also be present on television. Television is very important. In the most recent past, we did some travel documentaries with tour operators that were linked to offers for trips in Andalusia. We do newsletters and banners that are linked to our website, and the social media are used. So you have to be present everywhere. In Germany, you have to be present everywhere directly and in cooperation with the big tour operators. Are there ideas on shifting some of the balance, or? It's difficult. I think we frequently think about what it is that we can do new. We always have the feeling we're not the only nation that's trying to sell itself in Germany. There's a lot of competition in Spain. There's the Canary Islands, the Balears. They're always present in Germany. They're marketing themselves. And sometimes we have the feeling that travel agencies are slightly fed up with, receiving that much advertising from the destinations and with getting so many invitations from the destinations. So we are still cooperating with the tour operators, and we try to create new ways of winning over customers. And I think we talked about confidence. Confidence is very important. How can we get the customer to be confident in what it is that we are offering? So that means we have to work on what we are offering. It shouldn't be ready just for the summer season, but also for the spring and fall season, so that we always have a good product that we can offer in all of the distribution channels. But almost everything has been invented already, I could say. Nonetheless, there are still ways that will change and will be developed. I don't know what the future will bring. We use the channels that we already have, and there's quite a number of them. But when there are new possibilities, we're also willing and ready to use these channels, because Andalucia needs marketing, and we want to, win over more customers. But despite these many new possibilities, the classic things remain important. Trade shows, travel agencies. Yes, we're also present at trade shows. I think the best thing is to combine the traditional and the new. You cannot just drop the traditional customers. These are customers that also need to be represented, and we are doing a lot face-to-face. It's important, the direct communication with the end customer or direct with the travel agencies. We should never forget that. Online is important, but interpersonal communication is also important. We do B2B and B2C online, but the traditional channels should not be forgotten. They are very important. Ms. Blanco, we couldn't have said it any better. I think that was the perfect conclusion for this discussion round. Other questions?
Einen kleinen Moment noch, das Mikro wird gebracht.
Sorry, it's going to be in English. Sorry.
No problem.
So I do have one thing to say. I believe that the traditional markets, I mean, they supply a lot of jobs worldwide, and they are still very important, especially to the baby boomers and that generation. But I believe that soon is going to be outdated. We see children as young as a couple years old on iPads now and using technology very easily. And I think for young people, especially for myself, it's not so much a thing of time. It's about control. I don't like entrusting that experience and my vacation time, my very limited vacation time that I have as someone who works a lot or even someone who's older, to someone that I don't know. I'd rather go online and see the pictures myself. And baby boomers and the next generation, even my parents or people that I know, they ask young people for their help. So even though I think that it's still very important, I think that traditional travel agencies need to start getting on social media. I've checked for all your names on social media and Twitter, they're not there. So I think it's important to not only tell us that you're doing that, but to also be listening, be on those social media networks and start listening to what the young people want and what the baby boomers want and what direction you guys are going in. I think it's very important. Traditional markets, the traditional travel agencies, they can still succeed. They just need to be, aware. And if they're not aware, hire someone in college. I'm sure there's many people in universities that would love the experience to work with you and would probably work for free.
Okay, it was more statement than a question. Or do you have a question as well? No, it was just a comment. Möchte jemand noch dazu?
Anybody like to comment on that? That was a summary of one's personal view. She listened very nicely. So yeah, great. The traditional is transcending into modernity, and present will always become the future. I mean, we're on the right track. It's just difficult to look into the crystal ball. That's what the scientists are there for. What's going to happen 15, 20 years from today? And that's what we have to be as a travel agency. And very briefly on the Facebook sites, I'm not familiar with the other markets, but I think Germany is the country with the highest number of travel agencies. I think 10,000 travel agencies. So it's very difficult to say how many of them will be on Facebook. I think 5,000 will be more or less active on Facebook. Some do a great job. The others could be better. Mr. Freyer. No, I just wanted to add from a scientific point of view, we, on the side of the academic academia study these developments. We try to forecast them. If that's not possible, we try to analyze them. And that's a nice job. I mean, what's more fun than leaning back in the travel segment and letting others work? And we analyze what you're doing. And when you want to find out what will happen, you come to us. Well, maybe you can apply with the Technical University of Dresden. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much to the panelists for your contributions. I think it was very interesting, and we at least had the possibility of briefly looking at this topic. We don't have enough time to really go in depth. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of the trade show.
Meine Damen und Herren, ich möchte mich auch nochmal bedanken.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I was the scientific director of the overall Congress, standing in for our presenter. I would like to thank the panelists here for their interesting contributions to the discussion. I would also like to thank you for your contributions and perhaps come up with a small summary, a conclusion. At this point in time, the expert days at the ITB are coming to a close, and with that, the ITB Congress, I think we can on balance, say that it was very, very positive. More than 200 sessions with more than 20,000 visitors. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you, as our Congress visitors, received lots of interesting input and food for thought, and perhaps even concrete help for your everyday business. This would be a true pleasure for us. That would mean that our efforts for the last couple of months were really worthwhile. And we will also go on filming some of these sessions as we did today, and these will be posted on the internet over the next couple of days so that you can actually take a second look at things via the internet. And with that, I would like to thank you and wish you a very nice remaining day and a good and safe trip home. Thank you very much.